All right, get this. Today's deep dive, we're fencing.
Woo! Exciting.
I know, right? Elite fencing. We've got the rundown on 5 incredible athletes: Man Wai Vivian, KANO Koki, KIEFER Lee, CHEUNG Ka Long, and OH Sanguk.
That's quite the lineup. I'm excited to hear about these fencers.
Me too. And we're not just talking wins and losses here, we're going deeper. Like what motivates them, what makes them tick, those little quirks.
I love that. It's those behind-the-scenes details that make these athletes so relatable.
Exactly. And one thing that struck me is how their journeys to the top are anything but typical.
Oh, I totally agree. It really shatters that stereotype of, the fencer who's been at it since they were practically born.
Right. Like take Vivian, for example,
Right.
ranked #1 in women's epee. But get this. She danced, did taekwondo, even figure skated before finding fencing.
Wow. Talk about a well-rounded resume.
Right. It makes you wonder if all those experiences played a role in her fencing success. Like, did the footwork from dance or that discipline from taekwondo give her an edge?
That's a fascinating thought. Fencing demands both precision and strategy, and maybe those early experiences laid the groundwork.
Right. And it's not just her. Koki, our top-ranked men's epee fencer, he was a competitive gymnast before switching to fencing.
Really? Gymnastics to fencing, that's quite a transition.
I know. Apparently, seeing that silver medal match at the Beijing Olympics sparked something in him. But it makes you wonder, right? Do those years of nailing routines on the uneven bars somehow translate to the lightning-fast reflexes you need in fencing?
It's incredible. It really speaks to the adaptability of these athletes. Like, they have this reservoir of skills, physical and mental, that they can tap into no matter the sport.
It's like they're wired for this. And then you have someone like Lee. For her, fencing was a family affair. Her dad rediscovered his own passion for the sport, got the kids involved, and bam, Olympic medalist.
That's amazing. You can just imagine those family sparring sessions, competitive spirit running in the family.
It makes you wonder how much of an impact those early experiences have on an athlete's journey. And speaking of journeys, the fact that we're looking at athletes from Hong Kong, Japan, the USA, France, South Korea, it just goes to show you the global reach of fencing.
It's like a global tapestry of fencing styles, each athlete bringing their own unique flair to the piece.
It really makes you think, does their cultural background influence how they approach the sport?
That's a really interesting question. We often see cultural nuances reflected in other sports, so it wouldn't be surprising to find it here, too.
Right. Like, does a fencer from a culture that values, say, patience and strategy approach a match differently than someone from a culture that emphasizes speed and aggression?
It adds a whole other layer of intrigue to the sport, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's like, it's not just about physical skill. It's about mindset, strategy, maybe even a touch of cultural influence woven into every move they make.
It's like a high-stakes game of chess, but with, swords.
Then way faster.
Exactly. Speaking of different approaches, I noticed most of these fencers lean towards epee and foil.
Yeah, OH Sanguk is actually the only saber specialist we're looking at.
He's carrying the torch for saber.
He is. But for those of us who haven't quite mastered our fencing ABCs yet, could you break down the difference between the weapons?
Of course. So, picture epee as this mental battle. Any touch on your opponent, anywhere on the body, scores a point. It's all about strategy, timing, outsmarting your opponent.
Okay, so less about brute force, more about finesse. Got it.
Yeah.
What about foil?
So foil gets even more tactical. The target area is smaller, just the torso. And there's this whole right-of-way rule that adds another layer of complexity.
Right away, like in driving.
Kind of. It dictates who gets the point based on the attack. It's super nuanced.
Sounds like you gotta have your thinking cap on for that one. Okay, last but not least, saber. What makes it unique?
Saber is the fast and furious event of fencing. Touches can be scored with the entire blade, not just the tip, and it's all about speed, agility, those attacks, like a whirlwind.
Whoa. So each weapon demands a totally different skill set, a different mindset even. It makes you wonder, did their personalities draw them to a specific weapon, or was it just chance?
Interesting question. Regardless, what strikes me about all these athletes is their incredible resilience. The way they handle setbacks, it's remarkable.
Right. Talk about bouncing back. Like Vivian, ACL tears in both knees.
I can't even imagine coming back from one. But she did and reached #1. That's true grit.
It's that fire in their belly, And it's not just physical, it's mental too.
Absolutely. Take Lee, juggling those demanding medical studies while training for the Olympics. She even put her studies on hold to chase that dream.
Talk about dedication. It makes you appreciate the sacrifices these athletes make.
It really does. And speaking of inspiring, OH Sanguk's story. Recovering from COVID right before winning gold at the World Cup in Budapest, that's next level.
Talk about defying the odds. It's like they're saying, nothing can stop me.
Exactly. And many of them, they're not content with just personal success. They use their platform to give back, inspire others.
Right. CHEUNG Ka Long was named an outstanding young person for his contributions off the piste. And Lee, she and her husband, Garrick Meinhardt, they started an award at their alma mater to recognize fellow fencers who demonstrate, like, humility and selflessness.
It's heartwarming to see, right? They're not just incredible athletes, they're role models.
Totally. It shows that success isn't just about those medals. It's about making a difference. But let's be real, all this success, it takes serious work, intense training.
Oh, absolutely. Sarah Balzer, she trains at the National Institute of Sport Expertise and Performance in Paris, top-notch facility.
The training ground for champions. And it shows. She's currently ranked #1 in women's saber.
She's a force to be reckoned with, but even with access to all those resources, she emphasizes the importance of, the mental game, works with mental coaches and everything.
Yeah, interesting. So it's not enough to just train your body, you have to train your mind too.
Exactly. That mental fortitude, that ability to stay calm under pressure, it's crucial in fencing.
Yeah, it's like training your brain to be your own personal hype man. And Vivian, she talked about how she deals with setbacks, and it's kind of inspiring. She said, I'm always sad when I lose, but I try to recover as quickly as possible and get back to training.
Smart. You got to have that short memory in this sport. Every touch, it's a new ball game. Turn those losses into lessons.
Totally. And these athletes, they all seem to have their own ways of finding that inner strength.
Oh, absolutely. Like rituals,
Right. Like Lee. She swears by a good pre-competition meal to combat those nerves.
Yes, whatever works, right?
Exactly. Or Koki, he was saying how watching his fencing idol, Yuki Oda, back at the Beijing Olympics, it's what really lit a fire in him.
Powerful stuff. Shows you the impact role models can have. And sometimes, it's those unexpected turns that lead you to where you're supposed to be.
Oh, tell me about it. Like CHEUNG Ka Long. Remember we were talking about how he got into fencing because those basketball classes were suspended?
Yeah. Who knew a little break from the court would lead him to Olympic gold on the piste?
Right. And get this, even after winning it all, he's still hitting the books, studying sports and recreation studies at Hong Kong Baptist University.
There you go. Proof that these athletes, they're not one-dimensional. They've got depth.
Totally. It's like they're saying, hey, we're more than just athletes. We're artists, students, you name it.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got Vivian with her artistic side, Lee balancing med school with Olympic training, and O.H. Senguk, remember? He's a gamer.
Oh, yeah. He had to convince his parents that fencing wasn't just some hobby.
It makes you realize how important mentors are, Someone who sees your potential, even when you don't.
For real. His coach, Park Jong-han, saw that spark in him and nurtured it. Now look, world champion, inspiring a new generation. Pretty amazing.
Talk about a legacy.
Yeah.
And, it's a good reminder that we all have that power to make a difference.
I love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of elite fencing, I think the biggest takeaway here is that it's not just about the medals, the wins, the losses. It's about the human spirit, the drive to push boundaries, to overcome, to inspire.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It really makes you wonder, what other stories are out there waiting to be told? What other incredible individuals are changing the game in fencing and beyond?
And what impact will we make? It's something to think about. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive, folks. Until next time.